Yeah, Bona Sarah, it is 8:04 p.m. Here on the East Coast of the United States. Let me pop on my thinking music. There we go. And so tonight I'm going to be resuming work on building an API on top of the VTube Studio API because I have had exactly one person ask me for such a thing, at my own suggestion. I was like, I'm going to build an API for this. Would that solve your problem? And they were like, yeah, I guess probably. So, that's the plan for today. ISV tells me that the link to my archives doesn't work on my... Oh, I see why. I immediately see why that doesn't work. Hold on, I can... I'm gonna fix that right now before I forget. Let's log in. Can I do this on stream instead of just making you guys listen to me do it? Yes, I can. Scenes, capture groups, web dev, browser. There we go. I'm using Card because I'm the world's worst web developer and I'm extremely lazy. I guess probably is the best reason. Got the API item API included yet? I will race you for that one, Denchi. Okay, let's edit this. This is not how it's supposed to be. My archives link. I have the HTTP. Yeah. Okay, how do I do this? I HTTP in there twice. There we go. Done. Damn, you got legs. Yeah, I made you draw these for me very, very hastily. I really appreciate you doing this for me. This is the only full body art of Skeletom that official art that exists. This is, if you ever want to know what I look like in the fan art, it's right here. That's me. That's the guy that I am. Damn, I got legs. The specific request is that I wanted to be as lithe and bow-legged as a Monkey Punch, like Lupin character. My hero, Lupin the Third, really wanted to be, yeah, that's me. Alright, so now, that should work. I hit save, and publish my changes. Okay. And so now if I go to skeletom.net and click on my archives, there we go, it works. Cool. You can see last week's stream, which is the last stream that I did. And I haven't done another stream since last week's plugin stream, so that's fun. But you get all these other great videos, like the 2 hours we did for Playmo Weekender, where we raised like 800 some odd dollars for charity in 2 hours. That was fun. Or Last Pizzatudon. Everblue. I've been getting a ton of people suddenly commenting on my Everblue videos. I don't know how it suddenly got, like, found by the Everblue algorithm or who's searching for Everblue videos, but there's been a large uptick in people watching and commenting on my Everblue videos. Like, if we go a little bit of a ways back, suddenly, like, I'm in the 100 and something video range, view range for my VODs for these, which is uncharacteristic. Almost 200 for the first one in the series. I usually don't get very many views on here at all because I'm primarily on Twitch, which is what drives my viewer engagement, but I upload them here because otherwise there will be no proof that I've been doing anything at all. So I don't know, people suddenly are crazy about Everblue. I digress. So here's where we're at with the current state of the application here. I've got one cool thing to mention, which is that since the last time I did a stream, I added a whole new input method for this because somebody offhandedly mentioned in the VTube Studio Discord that they were trying to build a plugin that connects to this specific service for heart rate. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I have a plugin that connects to heart rate. There's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. And so in a single session, I sat down and I implemented this from start to finish. I should have streamed it because I would have looked like a big brain genius, but if I was streaming it, I probably wouldn't have done it so quickly or as efficiently. But it's hype rate. It is basically another phone app that uses Bluetooth. It's very similar to Pulsoid from what I can gather. I don't know why you'd use one over the other. I haven't done enough investigation, but they gave me an API key, and if I do that and hit connect, it should connect and give me some sporadic random pulse data, and you can see my pulse randomly fluctuate now. Hi Fuba, welcome aboard. I was just showing off what I've done basically since last time. I also added a nifty feature where if you have a password field here, you can push a button to reveal the password. This is not my API key. This is a dummy internal testing, but I learned how to do that. Very exciting, very exciting. So yeah, this all works. I'm pretty sure it's fit to ship. I gave a early access build to the people who were looking at it same day, and they said it met their goals, so That's good. That's exciting. Another one in this list. I'm going to have to add, before I finish the API, another one for this list, which is going to be connecting your heart rate over API, so you can upload heart rate data. But I digress. Let's disconnect that for now. We're good. I'll leave it on crying. I think that's probably going to be an accurate representation of how I'm going to be feeling. And then, so over here, in the API side of things, yeah, seeing your password for errors. It's very important, I think. And it didn't really occur to me until this one, where you might have a long thing and you have to copy and paste it differently. Thanks for doing it, yeah. So I came up with a good way to present the data on the API here. I'm a little uncertain if I want to do it like this, where I've got two separate socket endpoints, one of which is for piping out your heart rate data, and the other one would be for piping out when events, such as, like for example, whenever we trigger this expression, I would be sending out an event over the events API that says an expression triggered, it has this type of conditional, I guess it would say what expression it was, and what the threshold for the thing was. So that's my plan. That's what I do. I have two endpoints, yes. I've got my data endpoint and my events endpoint, which would mean that you'd need two separate socket connections depending on what you wanted to, if you wanted both of them, if that's what you're asking. Whereas I know the VTube Studio API just has one, which is just localhost, you know, what is it, 8001, I think, yeah, right here. So, and then you just get everything request and response. But here I'm going to just section them out by endpoint. And then you can just have your on message function always know what to expect. Yeah, you're going to need another one for subscription at some point, I think. But for your general request response thing, I know you just have the normal one. Here I'm just breaking it out. I'm going to add a third for input at some point, maybe today. Yeah, so I came up with a nifty way to get this all represented. You can start it on whatever port you want, hit start, and then if I go back to my browser for a second, I can demonstrate this. WebSocket, yeah, there we go. Cool, connects to the WebSocket. If we go back to Unity, we will see that it should start blasting out messages. Yeah, messages are going out at a rate of 1 per frame, which is probably very, very, very too much, but that's the best way to get smooth interpolation curves, and that's the purpose of having a socket. I called this a fire hose last time, and I mean it. So you can see we've got our one connected client, many messages. If we go back to our browser, computers are fast, right? It's a shock. We go back here, I can add an onMessage function, and once again we get our fire hose of data. I'm going to go ahead and now turn off the API in Unity, stop the server. We've sent out almost 6,000 messages in a handful of seconds. Probably about 10 seconds, I'm guessing. I think this runs at 60 frames per second. And we can inspect any one of these and see that we have our data. Oh wait, I'm not showing my browser. There we go. We can open any one of these individual payloads and see that we have our data. Our heart rate, and then the parameters as named for VTube Studio. Heart rate and the heart rate BPM parameters are kind of redundant. I'm not sure if I want to keep it this way, or just tell people to always use the VTS heart rate BPM one. Yeah, sending data at 60 FPS against localhost is no problem at all because there's no actual networking. It is simulated networking, which is fine. Anyway, yeah, so here you go. You've got your parameters as named for VTube Studio, and a timestamp, so if these come out of order for some reason, you can sort them by your timestamp, though they shouldn't come out of order because it's all localhost. Message type, even though I think there's only going to be one type of message that comes out of the data endpoint right now, which is data response. And that's pretty much that, I think. So the next part is where things get tricky. So you have to assume that a valid use case for this API is you want to connect to something that isn't VTube Studio. Maybe you don't even have a live 2D model at all, and you don't have VTube Studio at all, but you want to use your heart rate data for something, some weird bespoke program, like, I don't know, Vroid, or what have you. Imagine that you're not connected to VTS right now, and so you don't have a model loaded, and you don't have any actual hotkeys that you can load in modules like this. There's no expressions and no hotkeys. So you'd be able to create stuff here. You'd have no outgoing parameters, and that would be that, right? you don't have VTube Studio, you should still download it and buy it. I agree. But say you don't have a live 2D model, because those are very expensive, and Denshi doesn't directly profit off of you having a live 2D model, so there's no purpose in getting one, right? Say that's your case. So maybe you still have VTube Studio running, but there's no model loaded in it. In which case, you wouldn't have any expressions loaded. Maybe you could still set up hotkeys. That's a valid use case here. But my point being, I've currently got everything set up in my plugin, if I can go find it. Plugin. Alright. Where's this in core, I think is where I put it? I gotta remember where I put my code. Back to VS Code. Where did I put this? Heart rate plugin. This code also needs to be broken out. I've got about 300 lines that are nothing but saving and loading data, which is something that should be abstracted out to a separate manager class, I think. I don't like how much is in here. Anyway, way up in the lifecycle update loop here, somewhere. Update. I have everything wrapped in a conditional that says, is this authenticated against VTube Studio? And if it is, you can do all of this fun stuff. But if you don't have VTube Studio and you still wanted to use this for its capability of detecting when your heart rate goes above and below certain thresholds, it currently wouldn't work in its current state, because it doesn't do any of that calculation if you're not authenticated. And I think that needs to change, unfortunately. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to actually strip out that conditional, and we're going to basically wrap it around only the VTube Studio API calls. Perhaps in my library I should have made each of these function calls check if you're authenticated first, before it even does anything at all, but I think it's fine to let the user call those, and be able to handle the error of you're not authenticated here, separately, I think. This is going to make the code a little bit more verbose, but I think it will be beneficial for the exact reason I prescribed. So now, instead of checking and only doing all these calculations if you're authenticated, it will only do the function calls if you're authenticated, which is the desired behavior. It's like getting the expression state list. Only do that if you're authenticated. Maybe a little redundant, I don't know, but I think it needs to be done. If it is authenticated. Just over and over and over again. And this way, we'll still be calculating those values for the parameters in the data endpoint, even if you're not connected to VTube Studio, even if you don't have a live 2D model, and then you can use those values in your API as you see fit, even though they're named for VTube Studio. A subtle advertisement for VTube Studio. Denshi's taking notes. I don't know why. For each module.apply color. It gets a wrapper. Wait, uh-oh. Oh, no! Uh-oh, wait. Okay, so applying color is fine. We can wrap this whole thing in the call. I didn't realize I had moved the rising and falling edge logic out from the plugin to the modules themselves. And then we do a line call to the plugin, back to the plugin, to set the state of the thing. Ugh. That's kind of squirrely, but maybe fine. Because that means we're also going to need to do API calls from here rather than the plugin itself. Ugh. So we're going to do this. If... I'm pretty sure I can do this because it's public. Is authenticated? Yes. Yes. Another nested conditional, perfect. Kind of squirrely, but it's fine. Denshi, what are you up to, by the way, at this, I'm guessing almost 2:30 a.m. your time, if I'm keeping track of my time zones correctly? I assume you're working tirelessly on the item API, because if you're not, everybody's going to get on your case. But if you're doing something else, perhaps more enjoyable to yourself, like, I don't know, bird watching at 2 a.m., let me know. Let me know in the comments section. How's it going? I'm always shocked that you're up so late. As I said, I know you're saying you're adjusting for maximal VTuber watching, but it is what it is. I don't know if there's a better way that I can wrap this. But basically now, I've got all of this fresh expressions, yeah. So now I'm going to need to flesh out my events API, so I'm going to have to do a function call outside of the conditional, like, to do event API push goes here. 30% working, 70% passed out, drinking and watching Twitch. What are you drinking? What's on the menu tonight? What's your poison? Dare I ask? For the sake of consistency, I'm going to do this as well. Woofdord Reserve. That's a very German-sounding name. Woofdord. I thought I was going to say Woodford. Okay. Woodford is also relatively, I think, Germanic. But Woofdord sounded like, maybe not German. No, I think that would be German. Woofdord. It's the dog beer. Alright, and then finally... this is authenticated. Okay. So I think I have successfully wrapped every call to the function... Oh wait, check module... Oh, hotkeys, right. I gotta do this for hotkeys as well. So in here, same thing.
Well, you know I'm Italian.
Hey Lua, how's it going? I enjoyed your piano, by which I mean violin stream. I know you were doing piano earlier, but I'm going to give you the shout out right now just because I like that it's going to say you were last seen playing music. Wanted to find out what that was. It's a line from Columbo from episode in season 3 called Any Old Port, where he busts a guy who likes collecting vintage wine, and in the process makes the guy destroy his entire wine collection via entrapment. It's great. So, Lua V. Lucky. Last seen engaging in music, huh? Of Lua V. Lucky fame. Engaging in music. I'm a failure of music. Can't be worse than me. I have, pun fully intended, not a musical bone in my body. I really have no ear or desire to become good at musical instruments. I think my greatest failure as a human being is that my, like, singular method for being creative is via software engineering. I really feel like a one-trick pony sometimes. I'm always really impressed that you're trying basically everything. I think that's cool. I like that a lot. To-do. What did I write before in my other to-do? Event API push goes here. Better than me, the jack of all... That's not true! We can both say that we're better than the other one, but it's not true. It's very subjective rather than objective. Software is art. I mean, yeah, I often wish I could create art for my own game ideas or app ideas myself without being extremely beholden to other people. It makes me feel like a dead weight a lot of the time. Okay, so Lua, I don't know if you're just tuning in or if you've been here the whole time. Basically, the only things you've missed so far, and I am bothering to go through this again because this API is largely for you and your mysterious endeavors. Speaking of being a jack of all trades, I added a new input type for HypeRate, which is a third-party app, kind of like Pulsoid. You connect over your phone. You get an application token. You can connect to it over WebSocket. Pretty cool. Testing. There's a method for being able to show your passwords for this stuff. So you connect. The internal testing endpoint that they gave me will fluctuate a random heart rate every now and then. Pretty cool. So this was done in a single sitting after I was asked for it in the VTube Studio Discord. Cool, that works. I gave some nice UI flavor to my API settings over here. Yeah, I don't know anything about Hyperate. I don't know why you'd use this over Pulsoid or why necessarily you'd use Pulsoid over this. But they gave me an API key, and it's just a WebSocket with like literally no authentication whatsoever. So it took me, I think, maybe 5 hours to get this up and running. So I did it. If it gets even 2 more people to be able to use this plugin, then that's time well spent, I guess. Might as well have this be the end-all be-all for this kind of thing. I don't know if I've chatted here before, but I appreciate the work you do. You have not, because it has informed me that you are a first-time chat viewer, or chat user. Kari Chari, I think is how you pronounce that. I appreciate the sentiment. I'm glad that you appreciate it. I try my very hardest to make tools for people to be able to thrive with. That's all I want to do. No, nothing can use Fitbit, Lua. This is a dead-end dream. You have to let it go. There will never be an app that lets you use Fitbit. Unless I make it myself, which I will do when there is literally no other world left to conquer. Because in order to get heart rate data out of your Fitbit, you have to write an app that installs onto the Fitbit itself, and then pipes out to a... Oh, shit. Oh, thank you. Then why did I get this? I don't know! Why does anyone get a closed ecosystem device? It's like, I feel the same way about when people buy Apple products. You're literally, voluntarily sealing yourself into a closed garden, a walled garden. I don't know why anyone does it. I can't explain. Thank you, Denshi. You are paying money for this. You get access to a whopping 2 twitch.tv emotes, because I stream never. Enjoy these 2. Wait, Hyper can use Apple Watch. Is that special? Couldn't Pulsoid do that because it's an iOS app? I don't know how Apple Watch works. If 2 holy emotes, Tom. A woozy emote, please. Okay, so Denshi, this goes back to me saying I wish I had any aptitude for drawing or executing visual ideas in any way, because if I had the ability to make a woozy emote for myself, I would. I assume you mean the one that has, like, the glasses that are the swirls? Like, the classic, like, nerd scientist anime trope? Is that what you mean by woozy? Oh, that's what you mean by woozy. How'd that even work? I don't have lips. Or, like, pupils. I don't know how this would read at all. It would just be a close-up of my face. I don't know how that would go. Okay, but okay, so Lou, if this works for your Apple Watch, that's great. I don't know why it would if Pulsoid doesn't. I thought they were both just iOS apps. But if there's some secret sauce there, then that's great. That's just wonderful. But yeah, nothing will ever work for Fitbit. Fitbit has a API where in order to get live real-time heart rate data, it needs to be an application that is installed onto the Fitbit via the Fitbit application store. Not Android, not iOS, not anything like that. And then you have to build a server that you can beam it from that application out to in some anonymized way, I guess. And then connect that to this application. It's never going to happen. I don't think there's any way to do it feasibly. I think also if I did that, I'd be violating their terms of service, technically, because there's a reason they don't let their own API calls get to the heart rate data, I think. Go for it. If you do that, I would be more than happy to build support for it into this plugin if you want to tackle making a Fitbit application. That is way above my pay grade of $0, so I will not do it until there are no more worlds left to conquer. Anyway, empty promises. Anyway, yeah, there's more flavor here for the API. We're gonna have a data API and an event API. Both are going to be read-only. You can get your current heart rate data and the parameter data out of the data one, and you will get push events for rising and falling edge events for these type of things from the event API. I've always wondered this, Denshi, but every company that I've spoken to that has an API around this, well, actually no, Hyperate has like no security whatsoever. You install their app, you get a user ID, and you just put it in here, and you're good. You don't need to 2FA or anything. Pulsoid is way, way, way more sensitive with it, and they think it's very secure information. I don't know why. I don't really know what evil information you can do with that. I think I brought this up last stream. The worst I can imagine for a thing like Pulsoid is you know when somebody's, say, jogging, and therefore not home. But in the context of a VTubing plugin, they're going to be home, even if their heart rate's really high. And as Lua said, you basically just know when somebody's at their most vulnerable and or dying. The only protected kind of data. Why am I crying? Because I'm programming. Because it's 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday, and I'm basically doing what I do for my full-time job anyway. I cannot stop the grind set. That's why I'm crying. That's why I'm crying, Lua. Because this is the only thing on this world I'm good at, and I do it nonstop. Okay. So, with all of that said, I now have to design my events API, which is going to be no fun at all. Let's close this. Let's go back to VS Code. At least you're good. I appreciate that. I don't think that's true. But again, it's very subjective. So going back to our API server. Oh yeah, and so then the very, very, very last thing I did was, instead of doing all the calculations only if you're authenticated, I basically just wrapped the part where it sends those calculations to VTube Studio in checks to see if it's authenticated every time. This means that you'll still be able to get the parameter data from the plugin via the API, even if you're not connected to VTube Studio at all. Do you code in C# during the week as well? No, I wish. I have to fluctuate between Java, which sucks. It's like C# minus minus. It's the prototype. JavaScript, and Python for my day job. I do all three of those every day. It's mind-numbing. Oof, Java. Yeah. That's how I feel as well. It's on over 1 billion devices, as Oracle would love to have you know. Alright, where's my API server? API manager. Okay, so now we have to devise a message type here for the event service. This is data message. So we're going to have an event message. What did I do? Oh no. Public class. Oh. Okay. Please format good. Please. Wait. No. You have to indent because you're an nested class. In data message, you're going to become event message. Data is still data. Oh, actually, while I'm on the subject, I have one bone to pick with the Hyper8 guys, who will presumably never watch this video, and therefore I'm safe. Where's my Hyper8 manager? In their API, in their infinite wisdom, one, I don't know why they have their stuff set up this way. You have to send a message with the topic of Phoenix in order to keep your connection alive. Like, that's what they want for their heartbeat, no pun intended, or their ping pong function. That was difficult to figure out. And then in their actual message API, they have a field called event, which is a reserved keyword in most languages that are strongly typed. So you have to get around it by using the @ symbol to tell the compiler, like, no, it's okay. I did mean to name my string field event. And they also have one called ref. I don't know what this does. It's always been 0 in every call I've made, but that's also a reserved keyword. So I don't know why they've done this. Please, as I comment here, don't name your variables after reserved keywords in your API. Never do this. It's bad. I guess it works for JavaScript, because JavaScript does not give a single shit about anything in this world. And most WebSocket connections are probably via JavaScript, if I had to guess. But don't do this. I bring this up now only because I'm now writing an event API, and I was thinking, okay, so I've got my data here, what goes in the data, and I was like, oh, do I have a field called event that specifies if this is a hotkey event or a expression event? But no, I don't do that. JavaScript fears nothing. It gets a bad rap for being, like, I don't know, kind of bloated or, I don't know, just strange. But I have to admire its tenacity for never ever saying die. It will fight to the last breath to try and make your code happen. It will not crash. It will just keep trucking, and that is what makes it beloved by many and all. I will design the next VTS API endpoint to have every field named after popular reserved keywords just for you. Yes. Denshi, if you do that, as I just demonstrated though, I already know the silver bullet, which is just I have to apply an ampersand or no, ampersand's the and sign, the at symbol, and that will be all set. And I can abstract that away from users, so you won't be able to hurt anybody except me. And even then, it won't hurt that bad. If, if while. There you go. You have to make sure one of them is this, also. I hate JavaScript. Weakly typed languages disgust me. Yeah, they're pathetic. When I say I have to do JavaScript at work, I actually have to use TypeScript, which I think I do hate more than JavaScript, because I have to go through a tool chain to make TypeScript work, which is more work than I'm ever willing to put in. Types won't save us where we're going. For example, back when it was useful, the Mildum bot I made for Discord, which was a Node application that was used for about a year, was written entirely in vanilla JavaScript. I did not use TypeScript for it, even though I have many, many type definitions defined within that program. I don't recommend building a enterprise Node application in vanilla JavaScript. I think that was a poor choice on my part. But if you tell me I have to set up even a single tool chain, I'm going to zone out immediately. I really wish I knew JavaScript. Well, it's fun. It let me build the dress-up doll application in less than a month, so that was cool. The entire environment confuses me. It is what it is. I don't have any great advice for learning JavaScript, but I can tell you that you can just noodle around with JavaScript in your browser, like what I was doing here. This is literally just me hitting F12 in Chrome, and you can just type JavaScript and see what happens. It's great. I just invented a WebSocket in my browser right now. And then I was able to define an onMessage function for said WebSocket. I don't need to make a Node app. It's wading through the spaghetti and hoping you find it. I pride myself on my JavaScript writing skills. The KSON doll app that I showed off last time is entirely written in HTML and vanilla JavaScript. I did not use jQuery. There are no external JavaScript libraries used for it at all. I am very pleased with how it came out. I think it is very clean, functional JavaScript. Please worship me. Yeah. Absolute madman. I don't trust jQuery as far as I can throw it, and I don't think I can throw it very far, because I don't think throwable is the type of thing that exists in JavaScript at all. So I don't trust jQuery. If you really have to throw away all concepts of proper code development to understand JavaScript, Bon here is a professional web developer, literally does that for her day job, writes JavaScript all fucking day. It's deranged. I don't know how she survives. I don't do front-end web dev for my day job with JavaScript. I actually do write enterprise applications in TypeScript. Mostly calculators, but Bon is unwell. It's, yeah. I don't know how to code properly. It's a problem when we have to team up and you write the most spaghetti-ass spaghetti I've ever seen. And I just have to sit there and think about how I'm supposed to make this extensible in any way at all. Bon is unwell. Yeah. Anyway, this brings us back to this. This is going to be an event response. And now I'm trying to decide if the message type here should just be event response all the time, or if this should be like event, you know, hotkey response, or what have you. I'm not sure how I want to do this. It's unclear. Because I could either define it in the message type here, which probably makes sense to do, or I can define it in the data payload itself. But I think this is going to have stuff like public. I just spaced. What do I need? Expression module has a enum for trigger behavior. There we go. I think these are going to need to be different types of event messages. This is going to be an expression event message. We're going to have a public expression module. Actually, wait. So my thought here is, okay, you have an expression event that gets sent out. We're going to say expression expression event response, and then its data class, I was going to have the type of... No, actually... Okay, wait, hold on. This is bad. What I'm doing here is patently wrong, because I'm gluing domain objects, or domain level information, like this enum, which is defined entirely within the domain of my application, to an external API. This is considered bad by enterprise engineer standards, because if I ever need to change this, it will break the API, which might be fine. Depends on how clear I am upfront about that kind of thing happening. But what would have been smarter, or better, is if I were to somehow abstract another layer on top of this for a boundary model, and have these map to something in a boundary layer, and then I just need to change the mapper, and the end level API never actually experiences changes here. Like, if I suddenly change what every single number here is, that would be breaking for the API. Considered bad by who? By me. And by the principal and architect level engineers that I have worked under in the past. They would consider it bad. Doesn't stop me from doing it, especially not for hobbyist shit. But typically you want to keep your domain models and your boundary models separate so that you don't push breaking API changes. Have you considered not caring? I'm considering it right now, in fact. You're watching me consider it in real time. Considered harmful. If it makes sense to you, it's good. It's good until I break the API for the only person who's using it, and then their plugin stops working and they don't want to update it, right? That's my concern. When you glue your domain models to your API, to your boundary layer, you could potentially push breaking changes to the API without making any changes to the API at all. And that's scary. I think. It's good until my plugin stops. Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. I would never want to do that, because then I'd have to bother you to update your plugin, and God knows that's never going to happen. Who has the time for that? Seems like a not my problem situation. I have, Denshi, you might have the most popular application that everybody is beholden to, because it's the industry standard. I have, like, maybe 100 some odd people that use this, and the number of people who actually use the API is probably going to be in the single digits, if not literally 1. So I can't risk scaring off users because they won't come back. You don't have to worry about that because there is no alternative. You have a more or less monopoly on the industry or ecosystem. That's what I'm looking for. I don't have that kind of luxury. If people don't like this, they will simply just not use it. Oy, oy, oy. So I think what I'm going to do here is we're going to define public. Check this shit out. Check this shit out. Hold on. This is wild. Public abstract class event message. And then this is going to have public enum. No, there's no reason to share this, actually. This should be defined per... No, actually, this is stupid. This is bad. I was going to make an abstract class and then have both of these extend it and they both have access to this enum, but that's bad also, for reasons I don't feel like explaining right now. So here we have this. We've got our data definition. We're also going to define enum, expression event behavior. This is going to be unknown equals 0. Oh, and I have to make this define or extend int for it to like that, I think. Does the programming equivalent of a kickflip. Yeah, except I crashed on my face. I was gonna make an abstract class that was just event message. It was gonna have this enum in it because this is basically shared by both the hotkey and the expression event, where there's basically three kinds of things that can be happening. It can either be enabling, what is it? Enabling? What's the exact language I used? Hold on, I need to check. I need to check my own plugin. Jokes aside, I'm careful about the VTube Studio API. Wouldn't push any breaking changes. I do have some tests in place for that. Do it. Ah. Oh, yeah, that's just placeholder string. Everything gets localized as soon as I boot it up, so it doesn't matter. I need to see what happens if the string overflows the field. Okay. Activate, deactivate, that's what I have. And then for hotkeys, do I have a hotkey? Hotkey trigger. Trigger. It's just trigger above, trigger below. Okay. That's fine. So back to VTube Studio. Activate equals 1. That's not a semicolon, that's a comma. Deactivate. Equals 2. Like so. Deactivate with 1A. Public. Expression event behavior. Okay, wait. So there's two things I need here. I need this, and then I need the. Can enums extend other enums? Can I do? There's no way. There's guaranteed no chance it lets me do this, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. Well, why? This is an int. If this extends an int, and it says here that enum needs to be of type byte, u short, int, uint, or long, or u long, is this not an int? Technically an int? Why? Why? That's annoying. Why? At any rate, it doesn't really matter. Basically, I'm going to do what I was saying before, where I decouple directly referencing my domain model here from the boundary model. And I'm literally going to copy paste here. Like this. Because it would be hella confusing? No, it wouldn't. That's how inheritance works. That's how Mathio works. You just... if the thing extends an int, then the thing that extends it should also be an int because it's a primitive type. That's just facts and logic, Denshi. Okay, so this is expression, event, trigger behavior. These don't need to say expression because they're nested in the expression behavior class. And this is now what's the language here? This is what's tripping me up. Enums extending enums. Chaos in the streets. Maybe non-class can extend something. Oh, also, I just remembered I missed a message from Cart way long ago. You were saying something about JavaScript. Basically, I write JavaScript by pretending it's Python with less opinionated indenting. See, it's funny you say that because every time I have to write Python, I think it's JavaScript but worse. It's literally just like anything I do in Python, I should be doing in JavaScript, I feel like. I don't understand... Well, no, I do. I do understand the singular use case I have for Python, which is it has the common decency to not use floating point numbers for literally every mathematical operation, so it's very precise for calculation, which is important because I do actuarial calculations non-stop. That is my job. I write fancy industry calculators forever. That is basically my purgatory, my punishment here on the mortal plane, is I have to write enterprise-level actuarial calculations every day, all day. And Python is good for that because it does not use floating point numbers. That is my singular point of praise that I can say about Python. Everything else about it, I think I would rather be using JavaScript. What does it use? I don't know. But they're high precision, not floating point. I don't know what the name of the primitive type is off the top of my head. Okay, so we've got the event trigger behavior, which is, does it activate above and below, etc., etc. Like doubles, or I don't know. I could look it up. I'm not going to because I'm doing something else, but I could look it up. Okay, so now I have to think about how much information do I need to include in this event message. So you've got your expression. Your heart rate kicks up to a degree where your expression activates. You have the information that it is of an expression module of type activate above, deactivate below, and you know that it activated. I think between that, I was trying to decide, do I also need to include an enum that says that this event is a rising or falling edge, like if it's above or below the threshold. But I think you can infer that from the other two pieces of data. So I think we're good. Speaking of, we need a public int threshold. There we go. System.serializable, like such. Like such. I wish C# would let me cast enums to strings. This is my one gripe with C#. It would be very, very nice if instead of numbers I could use strings. But I get why it doesn't let me do that. It would be nice. It would be so nice. That's actually the only thing I have nice to say about Java as well, is that enums are basically just instance definitions, and they can be anything, even complex types, which is cool. Watching you work makes me want to work, but instead I'm slothing on the couch with Kit Kats? Pain? Why would you want to work? I do this because of the eternal damnation that I am sentenced to in this cruel, fucked up joke of being resurrected as a skeleton to work forever, or at least until my bones wear out. I don't know why you'd want to do this voluntarily. I always want to work, that's my secret. Okay. We are cut from the same cloth after all, then, I suppose. Well, the good news for you, Lou, is I do this every Saturday at this exact time. So if you ever need motivation, you can watch me, or you can pull up one of my many VODs and pretend like I'm being productive. An honorary German. LOL. Yeah. Okay, so you've got your threshold, you've got your... Alright, the 30 minutes in this stream is going to be trying to figure out what I name these enums. You have your trigger behavior, which corresponds to what causes this... or how does this event trigger. But then you need to know what it's currently doing. And I don't know if there should be a separate word for that. Yeah, I was also going to say, I'm pretty sure Lua is an actual German. I don't believe she lives in Germany, ethnically German. I feel like I knew that for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if it's lore that's been shared on stream or if I could just infer it from the way she acts. But it definitely tracks. Much in the same way that I think anybody who listens to me for a little bit can infer that I'm like this.
Well, you know I'm Italian.
Italian siestas. What does that mean? I don't sleep.
Well, you know I'm Italian.
What do you mean by my Italian siesta? I sleep. When? Bon, you have to explain. I'm literally making eye contact with Bon right now, asking her what she means. What does it mean? Whatever. I don't know. At night? Yes, that's when people sleep. Yes. That's how it works. That's not a siesta. That's called going to sleep. What is your point? I've never taken a nap at 3 p.m. I get tired at 3 p.m., but I soldier through it because I'm at work, and I cannot go to sleep at 3 p.m. At night is when you work. Just like during the day. Oi, oi, oi. No, siesta is with an S. I don't know what to name these enums. I'm literally paralyzed. I cannot move forward until I figure out what to name this one. Event state. There we go. There we go. I mean, at least in Italian, I'm pretty sure it's with an S. Naming things is hard. Yeah, and the worst part is it literally doesn't matter because nobody's gonna see this. They're just gonna see the resulting values, which are just numbers. And then this is gonna be, yeah, expression trigger behavior. Okay, I think with these 3 pieces of information, you have everything you need. You don't know that. Someone might look at the code. I think the only person who's ever actually identified that everything I've ever made is open source is Lua, once again, who is the part of the reason I'm doing all this, because she contacted me about spinning up her own fork of this, and I was like, that seems like way more work than it's worth. You should instead let me do the work, and everybody will walk away happy. Yeah. Everything I do is open source. It's all on my GitHub, which is accessible from my homepage. And I think it's also linked here on my Twitch channel. I don't remember. But I do know I can do this. There you go. Literally everything I do is free under the MIT license on GitHub. It's great. Git. You can also call me a Git if you want. But yeah, this is all there. The only things that are missing are classes that have API keys in them, which don't get pushed to version control. And unfortunately, the whole Ant Plus DLL is not in there because that was like a $60 paid plugin or something like that. It was kind of expensive. So I can't just give that away for free. That would violate terms of service, I'm pretty sure. So that's not in there, which means this doesn't compile out of the box, which I'm not happy about, but it is what it is. Okay. So we have our expression event message. Cool. We need... This then needs to... do this. No default constructors for you. That's for sure. That. Guaranteed that I set these up every time. And we're going to do this dot data dot threshold. Threshold. This dot data dot behavior equals behavior. This dot data dot state equals state. It is what it is. API am what I am, as the stream title says. Okay. Cool. Okay. This is actually pretty good. I think with these 3 pieces of information, you have everything you need to know that an event has happened, and that you're in the clear. You know the threshold that it triggers at. You know if it's an event that triggers, say, when you go above the threshold, and it deactivates when you go below it. And you know that it's been either activated or deactivated in this case for expressions. Cool. Very good. Very, very cash money. So now we go back to... Oh, we're in our IPM manager. Never mind. I don't have to go anywhere. We have our send event. This is going to need to become multiple functions. But we're going to do... What did I call it? The previous one? Send data. Okay, this is going to be message. Cool. Broadcast. Message. And then I need to make another one of these. Send expression. But this is a to-do. This isn't ready yet. Because I don't have my other thing. It is what it is. Okay, so we've got our send expression event. And you have to define an expression message to throw. We find our event host, and we broadcast to everybody connected to it the JSON, and we pipe out that we've sent a message, which is just the number of connected sessions. Cool. I love it. It's great. Now we go back to our expression module here, and I go and find where I wrote a to-do earlier. Not that to-do, different to-do. Oh, I didn't write to-dos in here. I wrote one to-do. And so here we do API manager. Nope. Instance. Big singleton enjoyer in this household. Dot send expression event. We're gonna do API manager dot put that on a new line because I have my text set really big. So this is, what do I need to do? Threshold. This dot threshold. This dot. Oh, wait, no. Shoot. Oh, and I might want to have another piece of information here, which is the selected expression file. That's fine. Okay, hold on. I need to... What do I need to do? Brain stalling out. I need... So this rising edge... This is the rising edge, which means that your heart rate was below the threshold before, and now it's over the threshold. And so there are two ways that we can either activate above and below, or activate above. So I need to... What do I want to do? In here... Okay, so this is the part that I was talking about before, why we don't want to glue our two layers together. We want to, instead of passing these into the constructor, we're going to do, check this shit out, expression module, trigger behavior, and bool state. And now you're thinking, well, Tom, that doesn't compile. You're a complete fool. There's no reason to have done this. But check this out. Private. Where did I define this? Expression trigger and behavior. Map. And we're going to take this, and we're going to do a switch statement in here, like so. Map behavior. Oh, it doesn't return value. I was like, why is it angry? Like this. Oh, I probably need an unknown in here or something. -1. There we go. In that case, I should also make this -1. 0. 1. And that's actually kind of nonsense, having activate B0 and deactivate B. There we go. 0, 1. There we go. Okay, so we have our function to map this. We're going to do case. I wish there was a way I could alias this type, so I don't have to keep doing this. Because now I just have to do that over and over and over again for every possible type, which is boring to watch, but activate above, deactivate below. Fortunately for hotkeys, there is not so many possible options. I think there's 4 rather than 6. There we go. So now we're basically taking the domain model, which is the expression module enum, and we're mapping it to the boundary model, or boundary definition here, which in this case is pretty much one-to-one, but it abstracts that away from anything else needing to know how that works. You just pass in the domain models into the constructor of the event, and then the event knows how to translate those in a way that goes to the client. And then if I make changes to the domain, it'll reflect here because it'll have compiler issues, I think. And that prevents me from breaking the API, which is the most important goal here. So let's see what else we got. We've got activate below. I wonder if this is smart enough to know that there's every possible value for the behavior enum will be represented, and I won't need to do a default value. That's weird. Deactivate above. Deactivate above. There should be 6 at the end of the day here. Activate below. And then one more. Turn. What am I missing? Deactivate below. There we go. Oh, good night, dude. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, so the compiler is not smart enough to know that if there's a return value for every possible value of the switch statement that you're all set. That's fine. Return. Unknown. Now it's happy. And then similarly for state, we're going to have a much easier function here. Private. Actually, this doesn't need to be an enum. This can just actually be a bool, I think. Making state here, after all my agonizing of what do I name this thing, I don't think this needs to be an enum because this is basically a boolean. So we're going to get rid of that. And this is instead going to be named differently. We're going to call this is a bool. This is going to be activated. There we go. Jumping around. Okay, so then we have rename this to activated. Can just be a bool. We map our behavior from our domain enum to our end level enum, which all works out good. This has a bool activated. Why is this not compiling? Modifier public. What? Oh. There we go. Okay, cool. So now we've got our message. We jump back to our expression thing, and we can do this. We can just directly pass in. Next up is this.behavior. We pass in the behavior of the module as the domain level, and the message itself knows what to do. And then we do true in this case. And I can copy and paste this 4 times now, or not 4 times, but a couple times. Like this. I need to remember a semicolon because this is not JavaScript. This is back to being true. And finally false. Cool. So true, false, true, false. Very good. I think that's what I need. So now time to test this. Time to put it to the test. Let's launch up Unity. Let's switch over to my tried and true slider here. I've got 2 expression functions here. One for crying, and one for... actually, they're both crying. Oh, right. That's one more thing I wanted to add to my expression event thing. Which is here. Expression event message. Where do I define all these things? Data. Threshold. Public. String. Expression. This.data. And we need to add that to the list here. String expression. Semicolon that up. This should break our... Yeah, there we go. That should break this, which is fine. This dot. Paste this many times. One thing that I really dislike about how I've written my plugin here is that the code for the hotkey triggers and for the expression triggers is like very much repeated code, and then I've got detection for a rising and falling edge, and then stuff happens in that case. They look extremely similar. I have not figured out a way to coalesce them into like a single class though, which bothers me greatly. It bothers me. These things keep me up at night, you know? Okay, that's good. And we've got our thing here. I think it's time to actually test this. Back to Unity. So we've got our test slider. I will start the API server, open the game. We're going to go to our browser here. Let's clear this out for readability. Right click. Nope. Clear console. Do that. Events, plural. Alright, so we've set up our WebSocket. I'm now going to gently crank the heart rate in Unity here. We should see this pump out an event. But it doesn't. Why? Why? Who that is. Let's see. My eyes are not good enough to know. 399 CY VTuber has followed me. Thank you. Welcome to the Skeleton Crew, 399 CY _ VTuber. There is a skeletal proverb passed around in the underworld which reads, or rather says, if it does not read rest in peace on your tombstone, you get drafted into the Skeleton War. Very unfortunate fate for a lot of people, but I have to thank you for voluntarily enlisting in the Skeleton Army here. Your voluntary conscription will save some poor draftee from eternal damnation. I really appreciate it. How's it going? What brings you here? How are you doing? I'm also happy to see that you're not a bot. I was kind of worried for a second. Because all I was able to see when the pop-up came up was a bunch of numbers without the rest of the trailing name. So I was like, oh, it's a hash. What's the significance of 399CY? I'm interested. Always cool to watch. I'm glad you think so. I am in the process of... So since you're new here, I will explain what I'm doing. I have a plugin for VTube Studio that can take input from heart rate monitor devices via things like Pulsoid, Ant Plus, Hyperate, etc. And it will convert those into tracking parameters for VTube Studio. That's why my model is pink right now, because in theory, if I was a flesh haver, I'd be flushed, sweating a lot, because my heart rate would be very, very high. And so you can use these tracking parameters to control things like how fast your model is breathing. You can do things like set the tint of various art meshes to be flushed like I am right now, trigger expressions like the crying one that I've got going, etc., etc. So right now I'm testing building an API layer on top of that. This says it sent 5 messages, but I don't think it did. I think it's lying to me. Oh, no, it did. What the hell? Oh, it's because I didn't... I know. Okay. It did work. I'm a genius. I didn't have this in focus, so it wasn't updating in real time. But there we go. That's my event. It's activated, false. Behavior of 1. I'll have a document that says what these numbers mean at some point. The threshold for this was 77, and it was this expression. There's another one. Activated is true. Behavior is of type 0. Sad trails once again. Threshold of 125. Cool. This works. I'm clapping for myself.
Wow.
I'd seen this plugin before while browsing VTS plugins. It's cool to stream the process. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a genius. So I was just confused because I didn't think it worked before. I was looking at Chrome through OBS because I had Unity on my one monitor, and then I was trying to just do the scroll wheel or the slider in Unity while this was running. But unless Chrome is in focus, it's not going to update. So cool. This worked on its maiden voyage. You've got your events. I think that's everything you could possibly need to know. And if you're interested in 399CY, I have streamed every working session I've had on this plugin literally since day 0 when it was nothing at all before publication. They're over on my YouTube, which you can find in the links below on the archive section. So I've done, I think, about 12 streams of about 2 hours each on this thing so far. And of course I do a little bit of stuff off stream. Usually nothing too significant. This time's an exception. Thank you, Bon. Yeah, okay, so that works. So now I have to do the same process, but for hotkeys. So we go back to VS Code. Oh, and let me stop Unity before it gets cranky. There we go. In VS Code, we are now going to make another expression type. We have our... Wait, hold on. Ew, this isn't indented properly. Gross. There we go. Good. So we have that. We're going to now make a hotkey event message. Boom. And we're going to copy this. We're going to copy that floppy. Pretty much wholesale. Well, I say that, but how much do I mean it? Fortunately, we don't have to do such a rigorous mapping function this time because there's many fewer options for hotkeys. Because hotkeys don't have a state; they just get triggered, and that's all there is to it. So actually, to that end, activated goes away, and we get rid of that. This is going to be a hotkey. Hotkey event response. Threshold still exists. This expression becomes hotkey. Then we have serialized field, or system.serializable rather. Public class data. Big public class data enjoyer in this household. Oh yeah, by the way, Luo, what flavor of Kit Kat are you currently consuming while slothing about on your couch? Are they one of the nice imported kinds, or are you just eating America's reject Kit Kats? Which I learned recently are actually made by a different company than Japanese Kit Kats. It's like a licensing thing. Original, boring, awful, shameful. I'm sorry to hear that. You need to swing by like an H Mart or something. Gotta get yourself the good stuff. What am I doing here? Threshold expression becomes hotkey. Hotkey. And behavior is still the same. We're gonna have a private. Actually, I'll do that later. And then we need an enum. This is gonna have public int threshold, public string, hotkey, public hotkey, behavior. Like that, I think. Then I can copy this, copy that. My candy of choice is Reese's Sticks, but I think they are discontinued them. It's just like Reese's Kit Kats. That sounds cool. I'm trying to think if I have like a candy of choice. I'm definitely a chocolate enjoyer, more than I am a like sugar candy enjoyer. But I don't know. I'm also, yeah, I'm a big Reese's enjoyer. Reese's. Reese's. I don't know why I said Reese's. I suddenly turned like Canadian for a second. It's definitely Reese's. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Like that. This is hotkey trigger behavior. So now I can go to my hotkey module, and praise be that there are way fewer options here, where they are defined here. Only 3 instead of 6. Praise be. Because you can only activate a hotkey, you can't deactivate a hotkey. So the only behavior options for the module are trigger it both going above and below the heart rate. Just do it when you, or the threshold, just do it when you go above the threshold, or just do it when you go below the threshold. It's Reese's until you say Reese's Pieces, and then you have to say it the other way because otherwise it won't rhyme. I understand what you mean. Actually, I think in Canada, it's just Reese. I don't think it's possessive. Yes, I think this is true. I remember seeing something about how in Quebec, since they have to print everything in French in Quebec, it's not possessive because it wouldn't translate, I think. So they just have to call it Reese, I think. I might be misremembering, but that's another whole can of worms, how everything needs to be printed in both English and French in Quebec. So, I don't know. I'm not a Quebecer, so I really don't have a good knowledge of that. I just think it's funny that Quebec exists. Yeah, Quebec is like basically a satire of how civilization works. It's insane. I think the fact that it exists is very funny, and I'm very glad that I don't live there, because it sounds extremely difficult to exist in, just because of the level of bureaucracy they have around things like language purity, which is a very insane thing to say. Sorry, any Quebecers in chat. Not that sorry. Sorry that you live there, I guess. I hope it gets better. Condolences, yeah. I offer my condolences. It's I don't understand why they're like that. I don't understand why they are so beholden to French. Oh, I think that's right. Wait, did I really name them? Ugh, that's gross. Oh wait, no, wait. What'd I do? Oh wait, no, we're good. We're good. Quebecer, but only by descent. My condolences, I guess. I just think the concept of language purity is so strange. I don't understand why that's like the hill that they absolutely want to die on. There we go. Why are we complaining? This is the wrong type of constructor. Hotkey event message. Wow. I mean, I don't really know any French myself, besides the mandatory school stuff that one only learns, or that one learns in English-speaking province. Yeah. But see, like, knowing French would be, I think, mandatory. I also remember reading, and this is, I guess, veering into politics, which I typically would just like to avoid because I don't like to think about them. But this seems like a goofy kind of politic thing. I remember reading a bill that was going through in Quebec where doctors had to speak to patients in French, even if it was not either of their primary languages. It was like required that you address your patients in French and French only as a doctor, even if you say are Italian and can speak Italian to your Italian patient. You both have to be speaking in French. I don't know who enforces that, but something like that. Getting mad that there's too much Italian on this Italian restaurant menu. It should be in French instead. I don't get it. But this is what Quebec actually believes. Okay, so now in our API manager, we can add another... where was it? Send this thing. See, actually, this is why I should have made this bell inherent. What's happening? What's happening? Why the bell? What happened? Cupin! Thank you for joining the Skeleton Crew. There is a adage in the underworld that says if it does not read rest in peace on your tombstone, you get drafted into the Skeleton War. So I gotta thank you big time for voluntarily enlisting in the Skeleton Army. You're saving some poor draftee from, getting drafted. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by. I'm excessively amused by the fact that the words for avocado and lawyer are the same in French. They should sue to overturn that and hire an avocado. Is the word so wait, in French is the word avocado like an advocate? Is that why they're the same word? That's my best guess. Is that avocado would mean like an advocate for you, i.e. a lawyer. If the word is literally avocado. But that doesn't sound French at all. Avocat. Yeah, there you go. Which would be somebody who I'm guessing advocates for you. Hold on, I'm about to... Lua, that kickflip that you asked me about before, or mentioned before, I'm about to do it. Check this shit out. Public. Abstract. Class. Event message. Boom. Actually, oh yeah, that's right. Event message. Like this. Let's go. It's time for the way delayed kickflip. So this is going to extend the abstract class, and this is going to extend it. And I'm hoping that Unity understands, it has just a mutual understanding for what I want to do here, because now I can go up here. Where were we? Send expression event, send hotkey event. No reason to make these separate methods when I can just do this. Send event. And this is just an event message. And it should just work. And I don't break anything in here, and it should just work. Let me check that real quick before I commit down this road of ruin. But I should just be able to have my send event. Everything that extends event message is just good. So let me fire up Unity. Big dab. That's the kickflip. Okay. Start up the API server. Uh-oh, wait. Object reference not set to... Huh? Interesting. Oh! I forgot. I need to do this. There's a conditional that I forgot to add. I was getting a null pointer because the API server didn't spin up yet. So it was trying to send events, and it could not. We're trying to send, not events. Other stuff. Why is there an error? Okay, that's fine. So now we go to settings here, start the API server, switch back to my browser. We clear console history, we connect, add our on message, and now I'm gonna mess around with my threshold here to over 77. Go back to Chrome, we get a message. Data, threshold, behavior, expression. Yes, it understands that this does not in fact mean the abstract class, and it means the implemented version of it. Yes, this works. Yes. That's why I wanted to do this. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Cool. So now I just have the one send event API. I don't have to repeat my code. And now I can go into my VS Code? Here, back here. And we will copy this. I guess the one problem is I could possibly send expression events in the hotkey thing if I literally shut my brain off, like I was about to do right now. And where is the call? Like this. Rising edge. New hotkey. Threshold, this dot. Hotkey. Selected hotkey. And there's no state, you just know that the hotkey has been triggered. Stop hitting me. I deserve it, but like you don't gotta do it. Rising edge and falling edge. Alright, that, I think, is sufficient here. I will now test this, of course. But I think that is all that I need to do for the event API currently. Until Denshi adds the item API to VTube Studio, of course, and I can, have this interact with events, or with items somehow. Okay, so let's add a hotkey trigger. It's going to make me blush when we go above 45. Trigger above and trigger below. Very excited for item API. You and me both. But it's going to be a lot of stuff that I'll have to add to this app right here. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to having to make a module that lets you do possibly anything with an item based on heart rate. I don't know. Stresses me out just thinking about it. Okay, so we've set up a hotkey here for when the heart rate goes above 35 or 45. Start the thing. We go back to our browser. Clear this out. Connect once again. And we go back to Unity. We crank this to 50. Did I get a message? I did. Hotkey event response. Data. Threshold is 45. Behavior of type. And it gives me the hotkey UUID, which is probably not useful, but it seems like something that I should pass along. It's up to you to know what that means. If you're not connected to VTube Studio at all, then, you know, it's not going to matter. So, huge breaking change? No, Denshi never publishes breaking changes to APIs. He was saying that earlier. I don't think it will be. It's just more stuff for me to add, which is always fun to think about. Okay, so that worked. And then if I go back below, we should get another message. Nope, there we go. Wow, it's an API. Very patchy pleased with myself here. So that's pretty cool. I should save and commit. I'm gonna go ahead and invoke a commit reminder on myself. And then the last thing I want to do with this API, before I think it's seaworthy, is I need to add the ability to write to it through a third possible endpoint, and that will be setting heart rate data. And I'm trying to decide if I want to have an authentication configuration like how VTube Studio works, where it issues you a token, and you need to send that with the right request every time, or what I want to do. Because on one hand, it's like, oh, if you're writing something to the plugin, you probably need to actually be verified, because you could actually do something maybe malicious with that. You could mess with someone's stream. But if they're connecting to a localhost WebSocket, odds are good that you've let them in. I guess a web app could do that, though. So, never mind. I should add authentication for that, which is a whole can of worms in and of itself. But, maybe I'll do that on a different stream or off stream. I don't know. Maybe that's something for next week. Because this seems pretty good so far. Let me make sure I saved the scene. And now, navigate to Git. I used to have a pop-up in here for terminal, but I stopped showing that because I got lazy. And don't think it actually added much. CD Git projects. CD VTS heart rate. Nope, wrong one. Awesome. It's been years since I did anything with C# or actual dev work. VTS is making me want to jump back in. I mean, you don't have to use C# for VTube Studio. There is a perfectly good JavaScript implementation of the VTube Studio API made by Hawkbar. So you don't need to use C# for this. I wrote a library for this because I like Unity for making UIs, and there are some things you can do with a installed desktop application that you can't really do with a web app, I think. So that's why I have this one. I made it for myself, and then I made this plugin to eat my own dog food and make sure that the library actually was conducive to making plugins. And spoiler alert, it absolutely is. I think it greatly accelerated any kind of development that I could have on this. Very pleased with the results. I think there's also a Python library, as much as I dislike Python. Or library is a generous phrase, but there's an example on how to do this with Python. I actually have to help somebody set up a Python app that they want to build in the coming weeks, because they reached out to me and said, hey, you know what you're talking about, right? And as a support type VTuber, it is my sacred duty to assist any and all in the tech space for this kind of thing. If they want to elevate their VTubing to the next level with a bespoke plugin, I have to help guide them there. Probably in Go. Make a library. Make a Go library, please. That would be so cool. And then when you do submit it to Denshi, via a pull request on the VTube Studio API GitHub, and everybody else can use it too. That's the way you do it. Okay, yeah, that's how you do it. I think that's probably it for me. I don't know. I could mess around with getting the upload working in like the next 20 minutes, but I don't want to like suddenly start having a really low quality stream as my brain begins to shut off. Not sure. Not sure what I want to do. I guess I can show the steps I would take a little bit here. So I'm using WebSocket Sharp for everything in what's it in my WebSocket domain here. So the way WebSocket Sharp handles having you have your server and then you can specify endpoints to it, right? So I've got my start on port right here, which defines several services, which are kind of useless in and of themselves, but because these are read-only or write-only, so they don't have any internal logic. They just broadcast everything that's connected to them. I call for a low-quality stream. Okay, well I guess you win. So we're gonna make a new service down here at the bottom. API message, data service, data message, event service, event message, expression event, message, like such. Now at the end of all of this, we're going to make another service, public class input service, web socket server service, and we're gonna what is it? Protected on message like such, and for now we can just do e.data as a string. So we're going to need to define a message for this. And now the other question is, should this send a response every time you send an input to it, to like a handshake verifying that you are all set? I don't know. Public class input message API message. And that is going to be just like everything else. We're going to have a data class, and we're going to define data like such. We're going to say default is input response and all you need here is heart rate, which I guess is a float for some reason. Going to be an int, actually, not a float. Doesn't really matter. So we've got the input response. Cool. And what else do we need here? So then we're going to do try. Bond, did you just blow out a candle? It smells like smoke in here all of a sudden, and I know we're not on fire. Awesome, cool. It smells nice in here. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't burning and not aware of it. System exception EX. Zero. 1. You're having a stroke. Don't joke. That's not funny. Don't say these things. But that always does make me nervous because I do know that is one of the classical symptoms of such a thing, is smelling burning. So then we're going to do e.data ex. Like that. Just kidding, I don't need to use the string.format because that's built in. like that. So we're gonna try. Yeah, I know you. I know that. That's the the patented Lua Lucky or Lucky Family dry sense of humor. And honestly, I'm probably like one step from saying that kind of shit myself, but I feel like that's in particularly poor taste. I already feel weird about being a skeleton in my kayfabe and saying stuff like talking about being dead and all, because I'm like, oh, that's kind of morbid. That's maybe dark. I wouldn't want to curse anybody like that. But at the same time, you have to purge the frailty of the flesh. It's the only real way to become your ideal self, I think. We're so held back by the weakness of the mortal body. So it is what it is. Input message. Message equals JSON utility dot from JSON. We have that, which converts it to a strongly typed deal. And then what we want to do, we should probably log this somewhere. No, actually, we don't need to. What we want to do... No, actually, yes, let's log this. Debug. For now, let's debug log this. Like so. And now we want to have some way in our API manager. We're going to do... Oh, this is another thing I want to figure out how to make more uniform. I have these same, like, 5 fields for every endpoint I add, and I feel like there should be a way to just build those into the class instead of having to specify them here, but I am not at that level of refactoring yet. Input path. Data clients plus. Alright, and then lastly, under input, we're going to have private int. I think that's the same thing we do in, like, here, right? What do I always call it the same thing? Heart rate, yes. Zero. We have an accessor for it. Cool. And then way down here, we can do API manager dot I can do this because these are defined as children classes. As fucky as this looks, and even though everything's private, I'm allowed to do this, and it's fine. Data.heart rate. So I can do that, and then I need to go here. And we do this again. We're going to add a input service. Input path. Dot input messages is equal to 0. And now we can test it. With no authentication. I will do that later. Either this is required? No, but I'm insane. And I like boosting my character count. I don't know. Absolutely not required in C#, but I do it mostly because it helps me differentiate member variables from things that are getting passed in the function. Because they have the nice big pink distinguisher in front of them. But I also do the thing where I put an underscore in front of member variables for the exact same reason. So I'm kind of double dipping in that regard. Like going back to VS Code here, or VS Code. I name all member variables with an underscore because that differentiates them. But also I do this because it is easier to differentiate. Like I've got on status as a thing that gets passed in, but all these other things I know are distinct. This is required for cases like here in my message, maybe not that one, in here, where I have a constructor with like threshold expression activated. You have to, well, actually that's not even true here because I'm going through one more layer. But a lot of times in constructors it's required because you'll name the input parameters the same things as the member variables. So it is what it is. Now what are we doing? We're gonna spin up the API on the same port, and I'm gonna go to my browser, and I'm gonna clear this again. And I'm gonna open up another one here, except we're gonna go to inputs, or input, and I'm gonna do this is a little more involved to do in browser, but we can probably do const equals, and then it's gonna be data. I think this is literally all I need based on the specification that I just made. 100. I think that's all I need. Yeah, okay, so that's a properly formatted message or object. So now I can do ws.send json.stringify message. And then moment of truth, I can go back to Unity, and on God in the console it'll say 100. Hey, there it is. That works. What happened? What's happening? Who that is? Any browser can do this. You don't have to use Chrome. You can use Firefox. I think you can even do it in Edge. Pretty much every browser that has an inspector will let you just run JavaScript in it. I think you can do it in Edge. I think I've had to do that for my job a couple times for testing stuff. But yeah. Well, Edge is a Chromium browser, so I guess that makes sense. Firefox is not a Chromium browser, but it also lets you do this. I'm behind the times. Yeah. You can just run JavaScript in a runtime environment in your browser like this. It's great. It's really, 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 truly great. Very, very good for exactly what I'm doing right now, which is testing things repeatedly. But I did just lose my train of thought. Okay, yeah. Somebody just followed, I think, and I need to give them their respects. The Stirs, thank you for joining the Skeleton crew. I really appreciate it. There is a proverb in the underworld here that says if you do not get rest in peace printed on your tombstone, you get drafted into the Skeleton War. So I want to thank you personally for voluntarily enlisting. Your voluntary conscription has saved some poor draftee from the gates of hell and the eternal struggle of the Skeleton War. Thank you very much. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you like it. Hope you like what we're doing. Okay, so now, what I need to do is I'm going to make a little module here in Unity, as I am wont to do. Let's do slider. And we're going to make a duplicate of this. We're going to go into UI, prefabs, modules, heart rate input. I'm just going to copy this. I don't know what this error. Making a root of the currently open prefab into a new prefab on its own will make the open prefab a prefab variant with the new prefab as its base. No. Don't do that. Not what I asked you to do. So fucking annoying. Not pop up. It's actually deranged to me to think that there was a version of Unity that I myself personally have used for many years that did not have nested prefabs as a function. I actually cannot imagine living in those prehistoric times anymore. I don't know how anybody made anything. It's unthinkable to me that somebody would do such a thing. This is going to be WebSocket. Input module. You can get rid of the 1 because it's no longer a copy. This now becomes its own prefab, or my own original prefab. And now we can jump in here. We don't even need a slider. This actually doesn't need anything. It's just going to say that you're using the API. I'll probably add some stuff here like showing messages or whatever. But we don't need a slider. That part goes away. It's literally just a title. My studio's engine does not have nested prefabs. Sucks to suck. That's really rough. I feel bad for people who have to use proprietary engines. There's many, many reasons that I did not enter the games industry after college, despite it being my #1 hobby. I just think that sounds miserable. I know you get a lot of cool experience from it, though, and most of my friends are game devs. Most of my friends from school, rather, are game devs. So I was very interested, and I had big aspirations for being a game developer out of college, even though my degree is squarely within engineering and not games. That was my #1 hobby. That's where I learned all my Unity skills from, was doing game jams in college. But holy shit, the industry just does not seem tenable to work in. And so I made the decision that I'd do Dole's dishwater actuarial work for my job, and it would fund me well enough that I could pretend to be a funny skeleton man on the internet for all the time that I'm not working. And that is a deal with the devil that I was willing to make. Hello, my name is Solok. Just looking for someone who uses Unity to maybe help me with something and or lurk and talk with while I build my game. Yeah, if you've got Unity questions, I'm happy to try and field them. I am currently using Unity 2019 as my version. I have not upgraded to any of the 2020 versions because I've had no reason to. So your mileage may vary if you ask me questions. I'm also about to wind down for the evening, so there is that. But I do programming around this time, or 2 hours earlier than now, every Saturday. So feel free to stop by. Feel free to ask me questions on Twitter. My Twitter is linked below, etc., etc. 2019 is coded? What does that mean? What does that mean? The real reason I stick with 2019 is I think in 2020, they changed how the UI building works again, and I just can't be bothered to learn a new thing. I think it's actually better. I think it works more like CSS, which is pretty cool, but I cannot be bothered to learn a new way of doing things. I'm stuck with this. But yeah, thank you. 50V, or Solok, like you said. You said it's a way you spell it, Solok. Thank you for stopping by, yeah. Every Saturday I do programming, typically in Unity on C# stuff. Hey Venus, I'm winding down soon. I need to do the following. This is going to be title panel, has text, input WebSocket title. There's that. Okay, so I made a code when I was 16. Let's call it a language, and I made a font so I can put it in my game. What file do I put in the game? TTF or OTF? How do I add it properly? For Unity, both TTF and OTF work. For example, not resources, where am I looking? UI, text mesh, resources, font, Nodo Sans. I use in here OTF files because, and I also have a TTF one. Both TTF and OTF work. You can put them wherever in your asset folder. Unity will just innately recognize them as fonts, and then you can assign them to text objects as need be. TTF, OTF, I think WOTF, web fonts, work as well. So you just pop them in your assets folder, and that's all you need to do for Unity. If you need to modify them at runtime, they need to be in a resources folder. If you put things in a folder named resources, they do not get compiled into a binary, which means that then you can modify them freely at runtime, as though they were just the normal file. And so sometimes that's desirable for font files if you need to read from them in a predictable way, or you need to add new glyphs, but you'd put them here. Hope that helps. Oh, it still has the legacy UI and the newer versions as well, thankfully. Okay, well, point is, like, I spent a decade learning stuff the old way. I don't feel like learning a new method. So input WebSocket title, that's cool. Tooltip button, I'm gonna need to add a new tooltip. Let me do that here before I forget. All of my tooltip stuff is in a single tooltip class. It's probably not smart for me to have done it this way, but once again, it is what it is. It can't be helped. So here we go. Case. Tooltips. Art. Rate. WebSocket. 109. WebSocket. This would be input. WebSocket. Title. WebSocket tooltip. So yeah, I've got a tooltip button class, and you just give it an enum, and it knows what. Well, I wasn't showing I wasn't showing VS Code for any of that. I will now show VS Code for what I was just talking about. This is the low quality of stream that I was talking about as my brain deteriorates. Yeah, so I've got a single tooltip button class, and it has a function that just has a massive switch statement that says what tooltip it needs to display based on keys, but you can also define things like if there are buttons on the tooltip, and what those buttons do. So it's all very functional. It's fine. It's all defined as a giant enum here. It is what it is. So now back to this guy in Unity. We can say that this tooltip will open up the correct one when I add strings for that. Heart rate WebSocket, which is well and good. Who's pinging me? Oh. And what's next? I think all I need to then do is make a UI, scripts, modules, heart rate input. Now we do a WebSocket input class. Like so. And these all inherit from an abstract class. Art, rate, input module, like such. Which makes this very easy. This is how I was able to add the hype rate one in like 5 hours. Because I just have an abstract that does all this for me. So this is going to get heart rate's going to return. API manager. Instance. And none of this other stuff matters at all. I don't have to implement these because it does not matter. The API manager handles it all. If I needed to save and load stuff, it would be from here, but it doesn't matter. Well, thank you for the help. I'm happy to be of service. Turn. New save data. Not use. There's no information about the WebSocket to save because the port and everything gets saved as a function of the overall save data. So I really just need to patch through that you read it from here. And then there's nothing to load, nothing to save. Nothing happens when you change if this is activated or not. So you're all set here. My final step is to just add that script to this class. WebSocket input. Label is the text. And I need to, in the base heart rate input module thing here, I need to add... Oh, I can cannibalize Bluetooth device for socket, which is good because I wanted to sort these this way to begin with. Cool. I will never get Windows native Bluetooth working. It's just not going to happen. It cannot happen. It is so finicky to connect over Windows to Bluetooth devices. It is so unreliable. It'll never happen. We've got this. So now we can choose that this is a WebSocket. Finally go back here And moment of truth, I can load this up. I can select. I didn't put the string in yet, so that's fine. We have this. It'll complain that it doesn't have any of the strings. That's to be expected. My heart rate is currently 0. I will now go spin up the API server, which I will make start by default before I publish this. We're going to go to our browser. And I'm going to, once again, make my WebSocket. And I don't need to remake the payload because it's already a constant. I'm going to send it, and suddenly I'm going to be at 100. And you can see it worked because I suddenly got very flushed. Because I have selected the WebSocket type input here in Unity. And if I go back to test slider, I can mess with this manually. And if I go to my WebSocket again, it'll just go straight to 100. Awesome, it works. I am a genius. I was able to get this done more or less painlessly in one sitting. I will add, I think, some form of authentication around the ability to post data to this arbitrarily. Oh, who that is. Is that Solok giving me the follow? Thank you, Solok. I appreciate it. As I was saying before, old adage proverb in the underworld, if it does not read rest in peace on your tombstone, you get drafted into the Skeleton War, etc., etc. Thank you for voluntarily enlisting. Your voluntary service will save a poor draftee. As I was also saying before, I do this every Saturday at 8 p.m. EST, so feel free to stop by again next week if you've got further Unity questions. Watch me continue to make dumb features for my dumb little VTuber toys. I can do one other thing, I guess, before I sign off, which is actually add a string. For that, let me go find my my Google Drive file for it, though, and sign in real quick before I show anything. To my other account. Oh, I can show you how I do my localization as well. Already a part of the undead, just rejoining the family. Cool. Well, welcome. Happy to have you here. Heart rate strings. Open this up in my browser. So here's how I do localization for my app, which is going to have Japanese localization someday. Someday. I need to add... Oh, let me increase the size on this so you can actually read it. I just add rows in a Google Sheet. So I will do like this. I insert one row above, insert row above. This is going to be input WebSocket title. API WebSocket. Don't have a Japanese translation for that yet. Insert one row above. Input WebSocket tooltip. This would be to do. And then I can mark both of these as red because they will need a Japanese localization in the future. And I also need to fill in the thing here as well. So there's that. I can now go back to Unity. I have a tool that I wrote, an editor extension, where I can pull that CSV down into a text file. CSV updated successfully. And now if I run Unity again, we will see API WebSocket. There you go. And if I were to change my language, which I don't have enabled currently, but I'll give you guys a little peek here. Let me go to my settings content and enable the ability to change language. And I might need to add languages real quick. Yeah, okay. Let me uncomment Japanese real quick. Let me show you how this works. So now that I've added my language selector here, I can choose Japanese, and voila, everything that has strings currently defined translates to Japanese quite nicely. And then the things that don't look like this, or they just say string not found. So like my WebSocket will say string not found, but if I go back to English, we're good. So there's stuff that still needs localizing. Oh, I guess there's one more thing. I keep saying one more thing that I should do. Let's turn that back off and disable Japanese again. One more thing that I can do. We go to our port settings here, and I'm going to make another thing for statistics for the...
Well, you know I'm Italian.
Yes, yes. One more thing, yes. And then I'll get out of your hair. Input. API endpoint statistics. This is going to be the endpoint type is server API input title, which I think is a string I also need to add. URL will need to be taken care of. Message count here is also good. And so now I can go to my VS Code. One last thing. Server settings. Got this. Input stats. And we do in update here. Input client count. Do I not? Interesting. What did I name? I just did this, I thought. Oh, wait. There we go. And there we go. This should be happy now. I also don't like this because this isn't actually reflective of anything. I should also probably add the message count to what was I thinking? To the little widget on the front also, so you can see that it's working. But yeah, I don't know. And then so for here, input API, this is going to be messages. Back to my strings here. What do I have? Input hype rate. I had stuff for the API. I before E except after C. I spelled these wrong. And it didn't tell me. Right? That's how you spell receive? Yes. So we've got messages received. And then... Oh, I do have input API. Awesome. Wow. I was thinking ahead. So finally, one more time, we go back to Unity. One more thing. Save the scene. I can go fire up the... Oh, that's not good. Oh, right, I know why I did that. I am missing a reference. Null pointer exception. Or rather, I did make a reference. Okay. There we go. Now we go to the server settings. Never mind. Why? Oh. Input stats. There we go. Now, one more thing. We go back to Unity. Fire up the API. Hey, there we go. And we've got information about all the pieces of the API right here. Data API with its URL, event API, input API, and then they say messages sent and messages received. So I can go back to Chrome. I can fire up my WebSocket. We can go back to Unity and see that I will now have a one client, or I should have one client here, but I don't. Why? Oh, I know why. But that's okay. I will fix that in a second. Let me test the messages thing also. I can send my message, and ooh, that's no good. Neither of those work? Something is wrong. Let's figure it out. In the API manager, it should be working. In update here. Oh, that's why. This stuff. I forgot to fill this out. And then we do this again. Input host. And we also need to do over here. Put messages equals. There we go. And now we go to Unity and we run this again. Fire this bad boy up. I go to my browser. I clear my console again. Connect to the WebSocket. Send a message. And there we go. Clients connected is 1. Messages received is 1. I can go back to Chrome and just keep sending this message and you'll see it increment. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. It works. It simply works. So I think that's definitely going to do it for me. This is... Many, many pieces of this are working that weren't working at the start of the stream, and it went pretty painlessly, because I had a plan. So I will commit this. And then the fun is going to be documenting the API. That's the most important part, arguably. It just works. That's always the goal of this thing, is it should just be, it just works. This is why I really want Denshi to be able to give me a way that you can have auto-breathing set up for a parameter, and also still write data to it, because I'm very, very tired of having to explain to people, and I think this turns a lot of people off from having to teach them how to connect the breathing parameter to their model, because most VTubers don't actually know how tracking parameters work. It's all smoke and mirrors and magic to them, which is fair. They shouldn't need to, unless they want to. But having to go in and manually plug this parameter into a breathing thing, I think is kind of tricky, and it's even worse if you then set that to be your breathing parameter, and then you don't have the plugin open, because then you just won't breathe. Exactly. So I want there to be a auto-breathe setting that's like, it'll do its oscillation, but only if there's nothing from external tracking writing to it, if that makes sense. I made a issue ticket for it. So then they can set it to that setting, and also have this read into it, or whatever else read into it, and it will kick in the auto-breathing if there's no data coming from the plugin, i.e. a stream where they don't have this plugin set up, and not need to worry about modifying it ever again. This is my goal. This is my hope. It should just work. Alright, so yeah, that's going to do it. It's time to find somebody to raid, and it is 10 o'clock on a Saturday, so surely there are lots of people streaming. Let's see who's at bat. I think I am going to send you to fellow weird plugin maker Meiji. I think that's how you pronounce it. I actually haven't tuned into her streams enough to hear her say her own name. But we're gonna go there. Maygii. She's also a plugin developer. She makes a bunch of really weird bespoke toys. She made one that was like Flappy Bird controlled by VTube Studio parameters. She made one recently where if you slouch too much, it plays like a siren noise to get you to have better posture. She made a plugin that lets you play tic-tac-toe on a VTuber's forehead via channel points. She makes a lot of cool stuff. She's playing Final Fantasy right now, 14. She's doing some kind of raid. Love her wacky stuff. It's great, right? It's the spirit of being an indie. It's really good. So anyway, go tell her how cool she is, etc., etc. Have a wonderful evening, and I will catch you all next Saturday. Same skeleton time, same skeleton channel. Until then, Bona Sarah, and good night. Oh shit, Tsukimi's doing karaoke.